All right, hey everyone. It looks like we're live. So, what I want to get started with first is creating some stuff today, and I'll sort of talk about the goals of the session as we do that. So, one of the things I want to try and do throughout these sessions, similar to the user group, is kind of keep everything self-contained. So, I'm not going to be using a pre-existing Databricks resource or data lake, no secret scopes, anything like that. So we'll have to go through and create all that stuff first. Now I'm going to use my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. You can also get, I believe it's still $200 or $250 worth of free Azure credit if you do not have an MSDN subscription, just by signing up for a trial. There's also Databricks Community Edition, but you'll still want to, be able to create some Azure resources. I'm going to create a new resource group for this. I'll call it Extra Streams. Yeah, so today I just want to get to the point where we have a data lake, or at least have not a data lake, a Delta Lake, or at least have the connections to our data lake set up to where next time we can go ahead and do that first thing. I'll go ahead and call this Mixer Workspace. Now, we are going to want to be able to do a premium capacity here. Part of the reason for that is some of the features that I want to talk about in regards to Delta Lake and row and column level access require premium. That's what they're talking about with role-based controls here. So that's all we need on this page. I'm not going to do a VNet at this point. That might be worth digging into at some point, but I'm just looking for basic configuration. And then I'll call this done, and we'll go ahead and validate and create. Okay, and while this deploys, it usually takes a minute, we'll go ahead and go back and we'll create our data lake. And so for this, we want to look for storage. And so we want a storage account. And we'll use that same resource group that I created. And we'll call it can be fun to try and come up with a name that hasn't been used before. Now, as far as performance, you can kind of see the differences here. We're not going to worry about I/O in this particular case. I mean, these are just demos. If anything gets too slow, I might change my tune on that. Now, for account kind, we want a general purpose V2 storage account. That's what gets us a data lake. If you do not need to make a Delta Lake, like if you're just doing maybe key value pair type transactions, or if blobs are sufficient, you could go with a blob store and save a little bit of money. We're going to go with a V2. As far as the access tier, we need hot. So cool storage would be if you're not going to be accessing the data very frequently. There's some patterns out there that get a little bit more granular about like where exactly the threshold is for where you decide that. We also need only locally redundant storage. If any of this fails out, we're just going to be able to read it back. We don't necessarily need that replication. And then looks like our Databricks is done. We'll use a public endpoint. We're going to secure all of this through tokens anyway. Now, Another big feature that we want here is going to be the hierarchical namespace. So if you look here, that's essentially something for big data workloads specifically. Now, what it does that's kind of cool is enables file level access control lists. It also enables some of the more specific features of Delta Lake. Essentially, what you're getting through the hierarchical namespace is, instead of just having a big pile of files, like if you think about the way a Linux file system works, it's all just a bunch of pointers to different files, right? And so this is applying sort of an ordering on top of it. So if you had, for instance, a/b/c.text, right? That's actually going to be in a subfolder rather than a/b/c just being the name of the file and you addressing it that way. So there's some performance improvements, but regardless, that's going to be critical for our workflow. So we'll go ahead and get that set up. Okay, so while that's going, we'll go ahead and hop over into our Databricks environment. Pulling up some documentation here that we're going to need next. So the thing I want to do or show off first in the Databricks workspace is creating a cluster. I'm going to assume some basic familiarity with your Databricks workspace. So if we go over here into clusters, I'm actually going to create two clusters. So the first one we'll just call default. And if you look under mode, we've got high concurrency and standard. I'm going to create standard first. I want to create high concurrency next, and we'll talk about the differences. The pool allows you to keep a certain number of workers or instances ready. That reduces cluster startup time. Again, this is something that's really valuable for enterprise, and if there's demand, I could talk about sort of the how to reason about what kind of pools you need and how to set up that kind of stuff in a later session if needed. But for our use case, it's a little bit of overkill. Since this is a demo, I'd be remiss if I didn't go ahead and hop into the beta runtime. This is using the newest preview of Spark 3. Everything I've heard about it is pretty stable. We are only going to be able to do Python 3 though. If I run into some code later on, which seems almost inevitable, that requires Scala, then we'll just create a new cluster and we'll use the older runtime. But typically they only start with support for PySpark. We don't need auto scaling. We'll do terminate after 60. And then, yeah, I think that config is fine. We only need the one worker. And then under advanced options, you'll see that I can enable credential pass-through. So this is essentially the same as a feature of the high concurrency cluster, which is the Data Lake credential pass-through. The difference is that on high concurrency, it's going to work against everyone's Active Directory login, so or credentials. So if someone has access to a file within your Data Lake or a table, they will be able to read from it natively using the high concurrency cluster. If we use standard, we can get that same feature, but it's only going to work for the one user. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that disabled for now. One of the exercises that we're going to do is showing how to set up this access using tokens. So it wouldn't be productive if we skipped that part of the process. So I'll go ahead and create this default. Okay, and we'll let that spin up. We are using the DS3 V2 VMs. Those are the best general purpose VMs right now. If in the future we're doing a different type of workload, like say something more ML specific or doing some high throughput, we might look at something that's more memory focused or a cluster that has a GPU attached, but that's kind of out of scope for right now. Okay, so while that runs, let's go ahead and go back over and see if our data lake is done. Sure enough. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is create a container. So we'll just call this, we'll just call it default for now. And then we'll keep it private. There's benefits to doing that, read-only access for blobs, but we don't really need that yet. Okay, so once we have this private container set up, that's where we can go ahead and hop in and start getting access. So for instance, and let me see if I have a CSV handy that we can throw in here. Yeah, for now, I'm just going to throw a Databricks logo in there. We'll worry about using actual data later on. I think the data lake that I want to create is going to be using something from an API anyway, so that should be fine. And then let's do, yeah, let's just do the LinkedIn advertisement some of you might have seen. Okay, so that's uploaded. So now what we can do, if we click on this, it's going to open up the blob, and this is where we could generate an access token for it, right? You can also, if you go back, if we X out of this, you can also change some of this at the directory level. So if I went ahead and went into properties here, that's the same way that you get what we saw before, right? So I have to go all the way back out to this overview, and then I would set up access control. And so I'm going to add a role assignment. And so this should be called, I think it's blob writer reader. Yeah, storage blob. I'll just go ahead and make myself the owner. And I'm probably already the owner, but okay, so now we're the blob owner. So what we want to do is go ahead and try and connect to this container, right? And so one of the things that makes this kind of tricky to do is that we want to go ahead and do this using secrets. So it's pretty easy to go ahead and just create a config and hard code all of your API values, but we're trying to show best practices. So the way that you work with those secrets is through, sorry, that's my conda command prompt I want. This one. So if I just type Databricks, you'll see here that I have the Databricks command line tools already installed. Now, what we're going to want to do is configure it for this workspace. Now, if you do not have the Databricks command line installed, you can go ahead and follow this link. And it's pretty straightforward. Essentially, you're just installing this command line environment, and it's a Python utility. So should be pretty straightforward. There's some additional documentation down here if needed. There's also an Azure Databricks specific one, since there's a little bit of data lake management and stuff like that you can do. So let's do Databricks workspace, or sorry, Databricks configure. Okay, and so this host is going to be this link up here. And we want to include everything up to the hashtag settings. And then that's going to be my email address. And then for the password, if I recall correctly, this is where we're going to go, or sorry, I did not mean to go all the way out to the portal. I meant to click here, and then under admin console, we're going to need to create a bearer token. So if we go to this access control, or sorry, this, did I go to the wrong console? Maybe it's under user settings. Yeah, it's under user settings. That's my bad. So we're going to use this to authenticate to the Databricks API instead of using our password. We'll call this for CLI. I don't want this to expire. You can enforce this if you want that level of security for your users. I would probably even recommend it. And then I'm going to go ahead and generate this off screen so that none of you guys can access my Databricks workspace. No offense. So we'll go ahead and, so I click generate on that, and then we'll go ahead and bring that over here and run. And then I should be able to do Databricks workspace. Okay, cool. And so like I can do a workspace ls, and it will show all the, oh, maybe it does not like my authentication. Okay, 1 second. I think if I do Databricks configure, I think there's a path I need to provide to tell it that I'm using a token. Yeah, it's just this. Let's see if it likes that better. Maybe I'm being silly here. Okay, there we go. There we go. So we can see we're connected. So now if I run Databricks-H, I'll see that one of the options is going to be to create secrets. So I'll do Databricks secrets. Okay, and so you'll see that we have the ability to create a scope, and then we also have the ability to list and put, right? So we're going to go ahead and create a scope and then do a write. So to create access for this default container, which is where we want to start, I want to create a scope called default. Cool. So then I can do a write. Okay, and so if we do and then we're for the key, I'll just do test for right now just to show off how this works. And we'll do string value. And then we'll just call it 1, 2, 3. Cool. Okay, so back over here, we'll go ahead and create a notebook. We'll do episode 0. Okay, and so if we do, I believe it's spark dot. Okay, first guess wasn't right. So we'll do our first Google search of the session. Well, second. I always forget which library this command is in. Oh, it's dbutils. So we'll do dbutils dot. Get so let's do secrets equals db. Okay. Okay. Now, if we go ahead and list our scopes, I forgot a closing parenthesis there. We'll see our scopes. So we can also do secret dot get. And so if I tell it I want default and test for my key, we'll get our key back. And it's going to show up redacted because of security. So let me go ahead and start organizing this a little bit so I don't have to later. Okay, so now let's do our data lake connection. Okay, so we're going to need to create a container, create a token for our container. So let's go ahead and go back over to Azure and grab that. And then let's go back over to, sorry, 1 second, just reading something real quick. Okay, so under access keys, sorry, meant to have that off screen. So you're going to want to go to access keys. I'm going to go ahead and regenerate these off screen. Again, I don't necessarily want everyone and their mother being able to access my data lake. But what we're going to need is this key and connection string. So let me go ahead and move this over real quick. Actually, I want to leave this tab here, so I'm just going to steal this. Just taking a second to regenerate. Okay, so now I've got the key. So we're going to create this and we're going to do, so we'll call this access key. Actually, we'll just call it key. No reason to overcomplicate things. And then this is where I'm going to put my key. I'm going to run this one off screen too. Okay, and then we'll create one for connection string. And so we'll grab that, do this one off screen too. Okay, so those both got created just fine. So if we were to hop back over to our notebook here, we could do secrets dot, I believe it's list for default. And sure enough, we've got our key and connection string. So now we're going to want to connect to our data lake, and we can use this access token to do so. So let me go ahead and pull up the code from Azure, or not from Azure, from the MSDN real quick. We're not going to use the service principal, so this is going to be slightly different than some of the normal tutorials you see. Yeah, they've hidden the service account. So I'll show the service account off next time. For right now, I'm just trying to get connected. Okay, so I think this is what I want. And I'll go ahead and collect all the links I'm using in a OneNote or something similar. That it's sort of like a wiki for us. Okay, so we're going to want to go ahead and create a file system. So in this case, I believe this is the container that we've already created. So I'm going to comment this out. I see we've had some people hop in the chat. Feel free to pipe up if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to go into more detail on, etc. Okay, so I don't think we need that either. Okay, so then the next piece is going to be our actual configuration. What I'm seeing now in the documentation, apparently with the newer runtimes with 5.1 and above, you can use OAuth. I think I knew that, but I'd forgotten. Okay, so our storage account name, we need to fill in. And I'm going to go ahead and do something else here. So so the purpose of creating this parameter notebook, or I'll just go ahead and call it parameters, and I'll change this to utils too. I get in the habit of shortening things, but with as high resolution as everyone's monitors are and as much storage space we have everywhere, you don't really need to do that anymore. I'm trying to lead the charge. But anyway, what I'm going to do here is go ahead and start initializing a lot of these parameters so that they're not hard-coded. And in this way, whenever you run a notebook like this, you can go ahead and bring in the parameter notebook, and it's going to define what all of your secret scope names are, etc. So like this is something we'll leave hard-coded. But as an example, I'll go ahead and create secrets .list, and we'll call it default, or we'll even just call it scope just to make it easier. And so if we went ahead and created a parameter here called scope and called it default, and then we can create storage and call it mixer demo lake. Then if at the top here I run, and I believe it's going to be utilities / parameters. Let's see, I always forget the syntax there. Oh, it's going to be but it just wants the slash. No, maybe not. I guess we could do that, but I kind of like the magic command way. This is just one of those things that you only do on, not even on new projects anymore, really. I'm usually importing an existing library, so I've just kind of forgotten the syntax here. Oh, maybe it's the users thing. If this was Windows, I'd just copy the, oh, I can copy the file path. I'll take it. Oh. That's weird. Let's try this. So I'm going to copy this into the root. I know this is thrilling stuff right now. Oh. I think I know the issue now, of course. So this is not Python code. So it does not expect this to be in a string. And we'll see if it wants utils or utilities. I think that's how you spell utilities. I've got an extra S. Yeah, so it was this string portion. But so anyway, if I delete this, I was looking for delete, not move to trash, and then go back in here and then pull this back up, you'll see that the variables that we're creating after we run this parameters notebook and the other notebook are now going to be available. So if I went ahead and ran this, it's now going to work because it's using this scope variable. So in the same way, right here, we'll go ahead and set this. We'll do a dot format. And then, what do we call that? Storage account. Okay, and then the scope. We call that scope, and then the key is going to be what did we call that? Key. And this way, if we decided to use a different scope for like a different storage account or a different demo, the key would still be called key, but then the scope would be different, so it would be able to pull in a different key. So we're going to sort of genericize this. Oh. Duh. Okay, so we've got our configuration set. So now we can go ahead and use this to try and mount the storage. So let me pull in the other piece. Okay, and then if we wanted to verify that we were connected, we should just be able to read from the storage account. So if we did like a db utils .fs ls, then we should be able to do, what would it be? Okay, yeah, it's this guy. Okay, and we called this default. And let's go ahead and change this to be a parameter too. And we can even do a base path. And we'll have it be generated from this. Oh, got an extra capital in there. Okay, and then so it likes it, so I'll rerun this up at the top. Cool, and then let's see if it will use our base path. Cool, and there is our image that we uploaded. So that is how you would connect, like this is the best practice for connecting probably like a year or two ago. Again, I wanted to start kind of from the basics and work up from there. Next, what I want to show is the way that the credential pass-through would work. And then next, we will talk about, probably next time, how to set up that service principal and some of that more best practices for 2020 approach. But yeah, that should be all we need here. Now, I want to show real quick before we do the high concurrency cluster. How we would handle this. So if I created a new cluster here, and we can call it default, and then pass through, and we'll do normal, one worker, and then I'm going to enable pass through. I'm going to enable it just for myself. So while that's running, so essentially what we would need to do is delete this configuration or remove it. For a different cluster, that should be sufficient. But I want to see, I can't remember if there's a command to delete from a configuration or not. So let's check that out while that's running. Yep, so sure enough, we can do an unset. So I'm going to go ahead and do an unset here. And I'll also go ahead and make it clear what's going on here. Another thing that I like to do is go ahead and initialize our secrets here. So we can call this we'll call it storage key. And we'll do the same for connection string. And I always try and avoid it, but I'll probably end up hating some of these naming conventions by the time we get to like an episode in, but we'll see. Cool. So if we go back over here, so that'll works, and then we're going to go ahead and unset this. to do our credential pass-through example. Let's check on the status of that new cluster. It's still thinking. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to switch this over. And I'll run this again. Okay, and so then if we take this fs command, or ls command, this should run using the credentials that we've passed through into the cluster. And sure enough, there it is. Now, keep in mind, after we went through all that work of setting secrets and setting up these parameters and all that, we can kind of lose sight of what's going on. So let me remind you, the first, I guess, 10 minutes of the video, we're setting up the storage account in the Databricks workspace. The middle 30, we're all setting up those secrets on the command line, setting up the parameters, setting up this configuration, all to get this. We were able to get it within seconds by setting up the credential pass-through and running this command. So if you're an administrator and you're running this kind of thing for, more than just yourself, this can be kind of a godsend. So really there's a couple of major options, like, how you can think of this, right? And they each come with advantages or disadvantages. So the four main options right now are the first thing we showed, which is using the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 storage account access key directly. The second one, which I'll talk about the downsides to each of these at the end, but the second one is using a service principal. That's that OAuth option. The other one is mounting an ADLS Gen 2 file system using the service principal. So the difference between accessing it directly or doing a mount. And then the fourth is the credential pass-through. Now, my preferences sort of differ on what you're trying to do. So if you're working just by yourself, there's really no reason not to set up credential pass-through for everything. And then, instead of having to do all this configuration, you're just working with file paths. Now, if you're working on, for instance, a workspace that's going to be doing a bunch of ETL, like you're going to be doing nightly jobs, it's sort of going to be, an actual server that's doing work, not say like a data science ad hoc research style server. You probably are going to want to use that service principal directly. That's the easiest. If you're going to be working with analysts, and you want to be able to get that kind of service principal level ease of access and management, but you don't want people to necessarily need to be able to run, say, like this set command or manage their own environment, you're probably going to want to mount using the service principal. That way, the file system the data lake storage is permanently mounted to your file system, and you're not having your users run these commands every time while still managing that level of access to the service principal. And actually, while I'm talking about this, I should really be creating this high concurrency cluster. 1 second, and letting that run while we talk. So if you look here, they do a brief explanation. So this is like the serverless style. So it's optimized to do highly concurrent workflows for SQL, Python, and R. It does not support Scala. There's some other downsides. If you follow this link, you can kind of see the pros and cons. There's some big upsides and big downsides here. It's also not as compatible with the newest runtimes in some instances. I think that's been fixed with recent builds, but your mileage may vary. And then we do not need a DS13. That would probably exhaust my MSDN subscription within a matter of hours. Okay, and then we'll enable credential pass-through here. Another thing to keep in mind, credential pass-through is just supported for Python and SQL right now. Support for R and Scala is coming, I believe, in Databricks Runtime 7. So go ahead and get that created. Okay, so the last thing we didn't talk about was the Azure Active Directory credential pass-through. That's the fourth option I mentioned. The reason that can be nice is if I'm a user that has access to some folders of the data lake but not others, maybe I have read access to some things but not write access to others, doing the credential pass-through is kind of a perfect option. Now, the credential pass-through really only has a minimal number of downsides. Since you're not using a service principal, you're not getting sort of like a unified layer of access. Like essentially everyone's access is dependent on their actual Active Directory account, which places a little bit more trust on your users. You're also not going to be able to do some of the automated workloads. Like I believe you still can't run jobs using the credential pass-through. Oh, I bet I'm out of vCourse. Let me go ahead and delete this cluster. So when I say I'm out of vCourse, you'll get this message seemingly a lot more often recently as virtual machines are running and a lot more cloud usage is happening on Azure. But basically, you need to create a support request to ask for an increased quota of vCores. So right now in the central US, I'm using 18 and I only have 20 available. So I just cleared out 2, so let's see if this runs. If not, we can pick it up next time. But that's kind of the general premise of how you would handle this this access control, your 4 options. And I'd be happy to do a more in-depth demo of the pros and cons of those different things. That's more of an enterprise solution that you'd run into, you know, like step 50, you know, of your Databricks life. So I don't necessarily want to skip too far ahead down those avenues, but you know, depending on what the audience is interested in, I'm happy to talk about whatever. The cool thing is that this is all even available. You know, a lot of these things like credential pass-through and high concurrency for Spark, you know, would have taken a team of 10 people, you know, a full-time job to manage. It seems like clearing that up wasn't sufficient. So we'll give it one more shot, and I'm going to go ahead and follow this this link just so you can see what that looks like if it fails again. Okay, yeah, it still does not like us. So let me show you how you would solve this real quick. I wonder if there's, if I go to, here we go. So this is an easier way to grab that than trying to deal with the popover window. Quota limits are just a fact of life, unfortunately. So if I remember right, come on. Yeah, okay. It's going to just take us to the support request, so I actually don't even need this other side. I thought this might just be a documentation page. Okay, so it's already filled that out. So we're just going to request more vCores. Minimal impact. Contact me. Don't call me, Microsoft. And we'll just do it in Central US. And I just need standard DSB3. And I don't know, give me like 32. Okay, that should be good. I don't see exceeding 32 at some point, like maybe on a month where I've got a fresh Azure bill and $200 to spend, we might spin up a bunch of clusters and have some fun, but that would be an exercise for later. Okay, so our ticket's in. So let's sort of recap. So where'd my main window go? Oh, it's, come on. There we go. So we went through the process of creating a Databricks environment. And then we went through the process of creating an Azure storage account. We made sure to have hierarchical storage enabled. Then we created a data lake Gen 2 container environment for that. After that, we created a cluster. Then we went ahead and created some secrets on this workspace, used the cluster to run it and connect to our storage account using the key value pair style configuration. We showed how to use the secret scopes and parameters to sort of make that easier and more generic. And then we showed how you could use credential pass-through to sort of do that process automatically and more quickly. So I feel like this puts us in a pretty good spot for next time to go ahead and start creating some data lake assets. So that should be pretty cool. If anyone's going through this and has questions about what I did, post in the chat or reach out to me via email. I would love to fill you in and clear up that confusion. And then I guess next time too, we'll talk about the high concurrency clusters a little bit more too, assuming that that support request gets cleared up. But yeah, that is episode 0. Thanks anyone who's tuning in and seeing this. I'll catch you next Saturday.